everyone. Welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia. Today I have a December reading wrap up. And you guys need to buckle up because I read a lot of books in December. And I usually do a weekly wrap up, but I took a little time off of booktube. And so I have a lot of books to wrap up. So this might be in two parts. We'll see how long it goes. Let's get started. All right, I have notes. I'm gonna try not to forget anything. So December was Remember December. And I will link all of the hosts of that event down in the description box. But it was basically an event to reread books. And so several of the books that I read in December were rereads. I was also participating in Reindeer Readathon, and so I have that to wrap up as well. I did complete it, and so let's get started, okay? Let's just jump in. So the first one that I'm going to tell you about was a reread, and this is Dragonsong. It's by McCaffrey. It is an all-time favorite kind of science fiction fantasy. It's science fiction due to the fact that it takes place on another planet, and yet it's still humans, and it's fantasy because it's dragons and dragon riders and that sort of thing. So we are with our main character, who is called Menely, and she is the youngest daughter of a holder. And the hold that she is a part of, which is similar to a village, but the hold that she is a part of is a fishing hold, and her father is the one that's in charge of it. So he's like the mayor, or the one that runs things. Everybody has to listen to him. He's also very old-fashioned, and he does not believe that women should be doing anything other than what has always been done by women. And his daughter happens to be very musically gifted and is the only one at the hold that is gifted. And yet he is so ashamed of the fact that she is gifted in music that he does everything in his power to make sure that nobody knows that the children have been taught by a girl, that the music that people are hearing is coming from a girl. And so Menely ends up running away in order to just play music, sing music, make up music. And music is a very important part of this world. And so that's another reason why her father is worried about people finding out. And so anyway, it's a wonderful, wonderful story. And it's the only McCaffrey that I have ever read. This particular series of books is the only McCaffrey. Pern is the name of the world. Pern books that I like. I have never read any of the other parts of this world or other worlds that Anne McCaffrey has written that I've thought, this is really good. This one though, this one and Dragon Singer are my two favorite books by Anne McCaffrey. So, Dragonsong. All right. And then I reread This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. Frank Peretti was a writer in the early 80s throughout the 80s, maybe into the early 90s. And he was kind of, he was a Christian author who was kind of trying to cross over genre lines. And so he wrote a lot of horror. This one is not particularly horrific, but it is a little bit scary, just a little bit. It's intense, we'll put it that way. But it is about a small town in Washington State that is being taken over by forces of darkness. And the people who are gathered from all different areas of the state, of the town, of all of that, in order to combat the darkness and the evil that is just kind of pressing in on this little town. And I loved it. This is probably my fourth reread of this book since the 80s, or yeah, I would say late 80s, early 90s when I first read it. And I think that there are certain things that don't hold up real well, but it's so nostalgic for me, and it takes me right back to where I was the first time I was reading it, when I do read it. So I loved it. Then I reread The Hobbit by JRR Tolkien. Out of the 4 books that kind of make up Middle-earth, the novels anyway, that make up Middle-earth, The Hobbit is the one that I have reread the most. And I think this was probably my 5th time through The Hobbit. I love it. I think most people already know the story, but it is the story of some dwarves and a wizard who have set off on a recovery mission, and they need a burglar. And the wizard, in his wisdom, knows that they need something other than a burglar, and what they need is a hobbit, and they need a particular hobbit. And hobbits are known to be very much homebodies. They don't go on adventures, and they are known as the kindly folk. They don't have a lot of animosity that is held within them. They are happy and kind and gracious. And so Gandalf, the wizard, in his wisdom, chooses Bilbo Baggins, the hobbit, to be the other part of the party of dwarves, to go on this adventure, on this recovery mission, and get their mountain and their gold back from Smaug the dragon. It was wonderful. I loved it. There's something about reading The Hobbit that just feels like there's this like you're just entering into something that is so familiar and comfortable. And my friend Tiffany said it's like coming home. I feel like it's even more than that. It's like crawling between flannel sheets in the wintertime. It's just like this perfect, cozy, atmospheric read. I loved it. Next, I have a reread of A Child's Christmas in Wales. This is by Dylan Thomas, and it is very short. It's like maybe 45 pages, and it's one that I tend to reread every Christmas. And it is just about a young boy who is part of a small village in Wales, and kind of some of the things that he has a memory of from when he was little. And it just feels so much like spending time around a table with a cousin or a family member and listening to their stories. And I just love it. So I reread that one. Next, we have A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, another one that I reread just about every winter, every Christmas, and not always, but I do love this story so much. I never get tired of it, and it was just perfect. Again, if you do not know, it is the story of a miser who has not always been a miser, but he has become one, and he is rather Scrooge-ish in his old age. And it is the story about his long dead partner coming back to haunt him and give him a second chance to shorten the chain, the very heavy chain that he has forged in life with all his cruelty. And so Scrooge has an entire night on Christmas Eve of spending time with 3 ghosts in order to find out if he can truly change. And it's wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful. So on that note, Dave from Book Blather and Olive and I read Mr. Dickens and His Carol, and this is by Samantha Silva. And we read this while we were reading Charles Dickens' Christmas stories. So Dave actually read, 4 or 5 different Christmas stories by Dickens. I just read Christmas Carol. And this one, I will say this is well written. She made a point of saying in her author's note that she was not trying to be biographical of Dickens in any way when she was writing it. But there are some things that she put in it that I wish that she wouldn't have. And I liked the beginning a lot, and I liked the ending quite a lot. But there was a bunch of stuff in the middle that I felt like didn't really need to be in there. And there is a couple of things that happen that are just questionable. And I just wish they wouldn't have been there, because the story would have been so much more enjoyable if they had not been. But all of that said, I will say that she did justice in her writing style of Dickens, and she made a point to reference several of his works and kind of pinpoint maybe some ways that he came up with some of the plot or some of the lines for the character or the names of the characters, and it was just fun in that way. So this was not my favorite read of the month, but it was still a good one, and I think it was a good just kind of idea about what could have happened. So there you go, Mr. Dickens and His Carol by Samantha Silva. So this was not a reread. It's the first one. I did already review 3 books at the beginning of the month. So if you want to see a couple of others that I have not reread, those are at the beginning of the month. And I'll make sure to link that video down below. Okay, next we have Hidden Christmas. This is by Tim Keller, and it was kind of unexpected. I didn't plan on reading this one. I got it as a notification from the library, and they said, hey, this is available and it kind of fits what you normally like to read, and they were correct. I loved this. So this is the story of Christmas, but he chooses to kind of put a pin in something that we normally would not look at, or that we would just read over and not really think about. And I found myself, number one, it's not an Advent read in the sense that you read a little bit every day. It's just a book. It's just something that he wrote about the Christmas season, about the biblical Christmas story. And so I flew through it and then went back to read parts of it again, because I couldn't stop thinking about what he was saying. And it was intriguing. It was so interesting. And when you have read, the same Christmas story basically for your whole life, it's so familiar that I read it in the same way, in the same manner every year. And this just made me stop and think about things, and I so appreciated it. I so appreciated it. So Hidden Christmas by Tim Keller, little book, won't take you very long. I think I had it read in 4 hours. Wonderful, wonderful book. Another first was The Quiet Eye. I don't think I have it over here. Oh, I do. I do have it over here. The Quiet Eye. And this was okay. It was fine. It wasn't anything exciting or really refreshing or anything like that. But what it is they give you a painting and they tell you, who it's by. And then right here is like all the information about it. And then they give you a quote from someone famous. And it's supposed to go along with the painting somehow. So here we have a painting by Henri Rousseau, and it is Flowers of Poetry. And the quote is by George Fox, and it says, "All things were new, and all the creation gave another smell unto me than before, beyond what words can utter." And that is the whole book, you guys. I mean, that's what they do the entire way through, is they give you a little quote, they tell you about the painting, they show you the painting, and you move on. And so it was fine. I wanted more about the painting. I wanted more about why they chose that quote. You know, just different things like that. So, all right. Then I read The Mysterious Affair at Stiles. This is an Agatha Christie. I just recently learned that it was her very first mystery that she wrote. It is the introduction of Poirot, but he is not the Poirot that I'm familiar with. So he's very mousy in this one, and I didn't like him as much in this one as I like him in books further down the line. But nonetheless, it was an Agatha Christie, and it was a reread, and I did not remember much about it, so it fulfilled part of the prompts for Remember December, as well as prompts for Reindeer Readathon. So then I read 2 cozy mysteries because I just needed to. Both of them are new to me. I mean, they weren't rereads. And that is the Furry Fortunes and Talisman Tales. And these basically were the conclusion of this magic, magic candle series. And I enjoyed it. I thought that it was a lot of fun. I thought there was growth, a good arc for the characters, all of the characters, including the animal companions. It was a fun kind of snack in between some of the more, I don't want to say heavy, but the more sturdy reads that I was doing. Okay, and then I read Ascendant, and this is by Michael R. Miller, and it was a new to me read. It's the first in a series called Songs of Chaos, and it's a dragon rider fantasy. And so this is about a young boy who is a servant. He's a cook. He has to also help feed the dragons. And so one day when he's delivering food to the stables where the dragons are, he finds out from one, I think, dragon master, that there are certain eggs that dragons lay that might be deformed for one reason or another. And so if they're deformed or damaged in any way, they do not allow them to hatch. And the reason for that is because the kingdom that they are a part of is based on extreme order, and you have to follow everything to the letter in order for this peace and tranquility to reign. However, things are unraveling behind the scenes, and he commits a crime and steals one of the eggs. And when it hatches, of course, they form a bond. And it is called Songs of Chaos because this extreme order kingdom begins to unravel, and it has to be not rebuilt, but aligned, and order has to come out of the chaos that is happening. And he gets to be a part of that because of the dragon that hatches and becomes his. It was so good, you guys. One of my favorites of the year. As far as fantasy reads go, it was just wonderful. I'm really looking forward to the second book and waiting for my library. Then I read some Chekov short stories, and these were just great. There were 2 in particular out of the 6, so it was a set of 6 short stories. And there were 2 out of the 6 that I really liked. And I liked them all. Earlier this year, read A Swim in a Pond in the Rain by George Saunders. And Chekov was one of the authors that he talked about. Was so excited to get my hands on it, to be able to read it. I read a couple of them with Courtney from Courtney Reads, and we got to talk about those 2. And I just get so much more out of reading Russian authors when I have somebody to talk to about what I'm reading and to hear their thoughts, especially when that other person is somebody that is better versed in the world of Russian literature. So anyway, I just so appreciated Courtney saying, hey, do you want to read it? See if there's any that overlap. Let's read a couple of them together. Because she was reading a different short story collection by Chekov. So it was good. I would recommend it. And then I read The Sunlit Man. This is one of Brandon Sanderson's new 2023 project books, and very closely tied in the Cosmere. It's part of the Cosmere, and has some serious spoilers for the Cosmere. So if you haven't read most of the Cosmere, I wouldn't read The Sunlit Man. It was so different from anything of his Cosmere wise that I have read. It feels much more science fiction than it does fantasy. It's about a character who can world hop, and he is on the run from a certain group. He is able to do certain things because of something that has become a part of him, and the people of the world that he ends up on in this book think that he is their savior. And so he ends up doing everything that he can to both help them and help himself in order to keep ahead of the characters that are after him, and also make sure that these people who are helping him survive. I really enjoyed it. I probably enjoyed it the most of the projects that I've read so far. I enjoyed all of the little Easter eggs and, connections and things that I was able to make to the rest of the Cosmere. So it was fun. I had a good time. Next is Cold Enough for Snow, and this is by Jessica Au, and it is a very quiet, very gentle story about a woman who really wants to connect with her mother and she doesn't know quite how to do that. They are Asian American, and she decides to take her mother on a trip to Asia, and so they go to Tokyo, and it's just about their trip. It's them wandering from place to place, and her really seeing who her mom is and what she likes and how she views things in her world, and just kind of coming to grips with how she can best be a daughter and be someone who loves her mother and allows her mother to love her in her own way. And it was really nice. I don't know what I expected from it when I picked it up, but it did get an honorable mention in my favorites of the year because it surprised me. I don't think I expected to like it, and I did like it. I liked it quite a bit. But again, just a quiet, easy, slow, gentle, yeah, it was good. Then I read 2 books that were in the Green Riter series by Kristin Britton, and those 2 were Mirror Sight and Firebrand. This is book 5 and 6 in the Green Riter series, and I'm almost done. I am almost done with this series, and I'm kind of glad because even though I enjoyed the first couple of books especially, the books feel much more angsty and YA-ish than they did at the beginning. And so I'm just kind of ready for things to come to a head and be done. Let's see, Mirror Sight is our main Green Riter going into a cursed wood forest, and with the help of what we would consider elves in most fantasy, that's not what they're called in this, but they're kind of that elven character, and she goes into the forest with them, and something happens and she gets sent ahead in time. She manages to get back to her own time, but is forever changed as a result of this travel and the way that it has to happen. And then Firebrand is her trying to not allow the future that she was in to happen. So she has come back to her own time, and she is now trying to set things in order to keep that future from becoming a reality. There are other things that happen in it, but that was the main kind of thrust of the story. I'm still liking them okay, enough to feel like I can finish this series, but it's not going to be a favorite series. And this last one, oh boy, it was long. It was long. All right, then I reread for Remember December, The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde. And this is a part of a series, but you could read it as a standalone because I've never read any of the rest of the series, and I totally get it. It's fine. He does an excellent job of making sure that you understand the world, you understand the characters. It is complete tongue-in-cheek, total nonsense, so much fun. I don't know how he writes like this, because all of his books are kind of in this similar vein, this similar tone. And it is so fun. It's just fun. So we are following our heroine, Thursday Next. She is with a Secret Service for literature in an alternative London, and she is part of a family that are quite gifted in all different kinds of things, but her uncle is an inventor, and he's kind of an absent-minded inventor, and he and her aunt end up creating this portal, and it allows them to go into stories. And so the Eyre affair happens to be about Jane Eyre and that story. And it's a romp. It is a romp. It is so much fun. I had such a good time reading it. So, The Eyre Affair by Jasper Fforde. And then last two, you guys. So the next one is Sailing the Wine Dark Sea by Thomas Cahill. And the kind of subtitle of this book is Why the Greeks Matter. I have read a book by Thomas Cahill before. Let's see. It was Desire of the Everlasting Hills is the other Cahill book that I have read. That one, I really liked it. This one was just, it was so discombobulated. I didn't like it at all. He has moments where his writing is just absolutely wonderful. But having good writing and writing about a subject that you should be versed in, at least to the point of being able to convince your audience that it's a valid argument or a valid thought, is important, right? You would think that it would be important. And there is none of that in this book. It just feels like he is spouting information, and some of the information doesn't feel like it needs to be spouted. And he never proves his point. He doesn't ever bring about the why Greeks matter, why the Greeks should matter. And so it was so disappointing. Did not enjoy my time in it at all. So I'm sorry. What a downer. Let's end on an upper. I finished Sinclair Ferguson's The Dawn of Redeeming Grace. This was my Advent read. I don't think that it was anything earth-shattering. It was nothing that was, a new thought in a new way or anything like that. But it helped to focus my heart. It helped to daily make me think about what this day means in preparation for Christmas. And I really enjoyed it. mainly it was just wonderful in the fact that I felt edified, built up, exhorted to be mindful of what this season was about and why this season is worthy of celebration. And so those were my reads. That's everything. Thanks for sticking in there with me. Go over Reindeer Readathon and just tell you, I was team stocking. And so Dasher, I read Hidden Christmas. We had a word search, and one of the first 5 words that you found had to be in the title of the book that you read. And the very first word that I found was Christmas. And so Hidden Christmas was the one that I read for that. Dancer was read a book with a title with at least 5 words in it. I read the autobiography of Santa Claus for that. Prancer was read a book set in a place you've never been. I read Lark Rise to Candleford for that one. Then I read, for Vixen, I read a book that you have been putting off, and I read Mr. Dickens and His Carol for that. And then for Comet, it was read a book that starts with the same letter as your star sign. My star sign is a Taurus Gemini cuff, so I could have done T or G. I read The Story of Silent Night for that one. Then for Cupid, it is read a book that has multiple points of view. And I read This Present Darkness. And Donner was read a book with multiple animals on the cover, and I read The Hobbit. And that's because it had a pony and a dragon. Blitzen was roll a dice or use a number generator and multiply the number multiplied 100 is what you had to read for the minimum amount of pages, and I rolled a 1, but I read Contrarian, and that is by L.E. Modisett Jr., and it had like 600 and something pages. And then Rudolph was read a book that came out before you were born. I read A Child's Christmas in Wales. And then the bonus points were Christmas Star, a book over 500 pages. That was Ascendant. Christmas Lights was an ebook, or if you couldn't read an ebook, then to use a different format. And so I did an audiobook. And I read Sunlit Man. That was an audiobook. And then A Christmas Carol was an audiobook, and I actually did A Christmas Carol for that. I also read it in here, but I listened to it as well. And so Christmas Tree, the prompt is branch out and read a book that you wouldn't typically go for. I read Chekov's short stories for that. And then Christmas Elf is a book that has been on your TBR shelf for a long time. That was The Quiet Eye. And then Slaying It is if you have completed all of your prompts and the Christmas bonus prompts, then you can redo one prompt of your choice for extra points. And so I did that. Also, I read Mirror Sight by Kristin Britton for that one. So that was Reindeer Readathon. Those are the points for that. And that's everything. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope that you are having a wonderful, wonderful beginning of the new year. And I can't wait to see what 2024 has in store. I'm really looking forward to this year with great expectations. I hope that you are as well. All right, I will talk to you again very soon in another video. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to. Bye.